Hi there, this is Justin. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to the Core Funnel Dashboard. The Core Funnel Dashboard is a Tableau dashboard that my agency Project BI builds for our SaaS clients. The concept of the core funnel is very important in the world of SaaS because it allows us to understand how users are going through their life cycle within the product. It also allows us to therefore understand where the product might have its biggest problems. So the core funnel dashboard is designed as a cohort report. You can see here we start our report with dates, and this is going to represent the date when the user signed up. And by having it structured like this, each row in our table represents a distinct cohort of users. And I'll talk in a minute why that's important. Next, we have columns that represent each of the major steps in the core funnel. In this example, we've got 4 steps. We have signed up, completed onboarding, experienced the wow moment, and subscribed. So just to cover these briefly, signed up is when the user actually signs up to the service. That's going to be our starting point almost always. Completed the onboarding. So, this as it says, right, this is when the user has completed that initial onboarding phase and is now ready to use the product. Experience the wow moment. This is very critical. Each product should have a wow moment. It's when the user experiences the value of the product, of the service. And subscribed indicates when the user actually entered their credit card and moved on to a paid plan. Now, different SaaS products will have different core funnels, but these are very common steps in the core funnel. So these 4 columns are going to show us the absolute values of users that passed each of these steps. So in other words, if we're looking over here on the week of the 2nd of September, we have 158 users in that cohort. And out of those 158, 38 of them have completed the onboarding. 36 of those 158 have experienced the wow moment, and 20 of the 158 have subscribed. So signed up is our starting point, and that's going to give us the total number of individual users or businesses, right? If we're B2B, we're not counting individuals, we'll be counting businesses, but the concept's the same. So this is going to give us how many do we have in the cohort to work with. This is important because if this number was very low, then we're not going to get much statistical significance to track them throughout the core funnel. So that's why we need the absolute values. Then the final 3 columns are basically the conversion rates between the steps. So signed up, right, is our starting point. So think of this as step 1 in the funnel, then step 2, step 3, step 4. This column over here, completed onboarding percentage, is going to represent the percentage of the cohort that got to that step, right? So in this case, 23.7% of the 158 users completed the onboarding. The next column, same thing. It's going to be the next step in our funnel, always compared to our starting point, the number of users we have to work with in our cohort. And lastly, subscription rate. That's going to be the percentage of the cohort that subscribes. Now, these percentages are what we're actually going to be tracking. Ideally, if our marketing team is doing a good job, the number of users signing up will continue to grow. But what we really care about are these conversion rates between the different steps. And by having it as a cohort, we can actually track changes to the product and our ability to improve these numbers over time. So we can see here very clearly that going back into June, right, we're actually looking up here, you can see the filter the last 90 days. We had almost 70% of users completing the onboarding, and that's dropped all the way down to 23%. So this is actually really bad because we want these numbers to be going up, right? So over time, these numbers are actually going down. I would, want to talk to my head of product and understand what are we doing that's we're basically week over week getting having a lower completed onboarding percentage. That's really not good. The wow moment, we're seeing kind of similar things. It's a bit more stable, but it's going down as well, as low as 22% in this week. And our subscription rate's also pretty, it's more consistent. We did have a high of 16.7% up here and a low of 10.9. So there's quite a lot of variance here, but we're hovering around that, 12 to 14% range. Not too bad. We would want to obviously improve this as well. So, we can break this up and look like on a monthly or a quarterly basis. And if we're making changes to the product, every month, we can actually see how the numbers are changing. And we can see here that over the last 4 months, these numbers have got worse and worse. Now, this is a very, very powerful report because it's high level and really helps us to identify weaknesses within the product and where we want to put our focus. So if I see, for example, only 23% of our users are completing onboarding, since this is a funnel, people that don't complete this step aren't going to get to this step, and then likewise aren't going to get to this step. And we want people to be paying us, which is up here. We're a business, we want to make money. So we would focus here, get this number as high as we can, and then kind of move on to the next step. Now, just want you to imagine that the completed onboarding was very high. Let's just say it was in 90% plus, right? But our experience, the wow moment was, as these numbers show, 20 to 30%, 35%, something like that. Then we could say, okay, most of the users are completing onboarding, but only a third of them or 40% of them, right, are experiencing that wow moment. We now know where to focus our attention. We can focus our attention here. And then since we can make the assumption at this point that users that experience the wow moment are more likely to subscribe than those that don't, right? That's kind of common sense. Then by improving these numbers, we're going to indirectly improve these numbers. So as product people, product managers working in SaaS, we want to improve the funnel from left to right, and this report helps us do that. Lastly, depending on the data we have available to us, we can also add additional filters to this report that allow us to segment our cohorts to do comparisons. So let me give you an example. We do have data on the country of these users, as in where they are in the world. So if I go ahead and I focus my attention on third world and just notice these conversion rates, right? So we see 10.9 to 12%, roughly 12 to 16% for subscription rate. If we look at just the third world, notice how the numbers drop. Right, we now have only 16% of users completing onboarding. The size of the cohorts are much smaller now because we're only looking at we've segmented the list even further. We filtered the list down. But notice the massive difference between the subscription rate of all of our users compared to third world. Right, now if we only focus on first world, the numbers go up, right? So here we had 12%, it's now 17%. This cohort is up as well. Some variance. Let's look at UK, or rather UK and US only. And now numbers are up. So these filters allow us to really start painting a better picture on our users, on our cohorts. And that's really powerful because if we see such massive differences by segmenting the users, that's great feedback to marketing, to product, to the leadership, because we can say that, one way to improve these numbers is obviously improving the product, and we always want to do that. But from the marketing standpoint, if we're able to bring more businesses from the US, for example, compared to third world, we're immediately going to improve those numbers, just because we see that the product is probably a better fit for those, those users. So this is another very powerful functionality of this report, is segmenting and exploring the different user cohorts. So that's it. I'm going to stop here. If you have any questions on this concept, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I like to get questions from viewers and always answer them. And if you find this report helpful, as in you think it would be a good addition to your analytics, then feel free to reach out to us at projectbi.net. I'll leave a link in the description below, and we'll be happy to have a chat and see how we can help. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.